Our wedding was months away, a dream I'd built for 5 years. When he looked at me, not with excitement, but with a cold, distant, "I'm not sure I'm ready," referencing someone else's messy divorce, my heart froze. I didn't cry, I just watched him walk away. He thought he was ending our story. He had no idea he was just starting mine. Like, share and tell me where you're listening from. This is just the beginning. Clara often thought back to the early days with Marcus, 5 years ago. Their connection had been effortless, built on late-night talks about classic horror films and lazy Sundays spent exploring forgotten hiking trails. He was sturdy, dependable, his hands calloused from his work at the construction company, a stark contrast to her meticulous planning as an event coordinator. Their engagement, 8 months prior, had felt like the natural progression, a joyful certainty leading to their October wedding. The date was set, the venue booked, and Clara was meticulously planning every detail, from the floral arrangements to the playlist. But lately, a subtle shift had begun, a faint discord in their once harmonious rhythm. It started innocently enough, with Marcus making offhand comments that pricked at Clara's optimism. "That's a lot of money for just one day," he'd mumbled, staring at a catering quote over her shoulder. Clara had brushed it off, attributing it to the usual anxieties of wedding planning, especially with his construction company experiencing its busiest season yet. He was under immense pressure, she reasoned. Then the distance grew. Texts about crucial wedding decisions, like picking out the final invitation design, would go unanswered for hours, sometimes a full day. When he finally replied, it was with curt, dismissive phrases. "Looks fine," or "oh, whatever you want." Clara found herself making excuses for him, explaining away his growing detachment as pre-wedding jitters, a common phenomenon she'd seen countless times in her line of work. Yet, a cold knot of unease began to form in her stomach. The real shift, the one that truly began to gnaw at her, was Marcus's increasing time spent with his work friend, Owen. Owen was a rough-around-the-edges kind of guy, always pushing Marcus to let loose. More often than not, Marcus would come home late, smelling faintly of stale beer and distant, his eyes glazed over, his touch less affectionate. He'd offer vague explanations, just a couple of beers with the guys after a long day. But Clara felt a growing chasm between them. The man who once couldn't wait to share every detail of his day now seemed to retreat into himself. One Tuesday, after another quiet dinner where Marcus barely looked up from his phone, Clara called her best friend Sophia. "He's just not here," Clara confessed, her voice tight with unshed tears. "Physically, yes, but his mind is a million miles away." Sophia, ever the pragmatist, listened patiently. "Look, pre-wedding stress is real, Clara. Maybe you two just need to reconnect. A proper date night, no phones, no wedding talk. Remember what you guys used to love doing?" Clara liked the idea. She booked a table at a new Italian restaurant that had just opened downtown, hoping the change of scenery, the romantic ambiance, would rekindle their spark. She chose her favorite dress, applied a little extra makeup, and even lit candles when Marcus finally got home, late as usual. The date night was a disaster. Marcus was physically present across the table, but his gaze kept drifting to the window. His answers to her questions clipped, almost mechanical. He picked at his pasta, barely tasting it. Clara tried to steer the conversation, recalling their first date, a funny anecdote about their shared love for cheesy horror flicks. He offered a half-hearted smile that didn't reach his eyes. "So," Clara ventured, trying to inject some enthusiasm, "I was thinking about the honeymoon. We talked about Italy, remember? Maybe Venice, then a little cottage in Tuscany?" She leaned forward, eager to see some flicker of their shared dream. Marcus slowly lowered his fork. The clink against the plate was unnaturally loud in the quiet restaurant. He looked at her, his expression unreadable, almost pained. "Clara," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm not sure if I'm ready for all this." The words hung in the air, cold and heavy. Clara felt as though the elegant restaurant, the soft lighting, the murmur of other diners all receded into a distant hum. Her world tilted, the carefully constructed plans for their future shattering into a million sharp pieces. "Ready for what, Marcus?" she managed, her throat suddenly dry. He ran a hand through his hair, avoiding her gaze. All of it. The marriage, the commitment, the forever. Owen's friend, Mark, just went through a brutal divorce. Lost half his assets, barely sees his kids. It just got me thinking. Clara stared at him, bewildered. He was comparing their future, their love, to someone else's broken marriage, someone she barely knew. His fear, his sudden cold feet, felt like a betrayal. Every shared dream, every whispered promise, felt like a lie. A crushing weight settled in her chest, making it hard to breathe. The ride home was cloaked in a thick, suffocating silence. Clara felt numb, her mind reeling, trying to piece together where she had gone wrong when this distance had truly started. Back at their apartment, Marcus simply walked past her, muttering about needing time to think, and retreated to the couch, leaving Clara alone in their bedroom, staring at the empty side of their bed. The next morning was a minefield of unspoken words. The air was thick with the residue of their fractured conversation. Marcus, after a strained breakfast of burnt toast and lukewarm coffee, announced he was meeting Owen and a few other work friends at the Rusty Nail. "Just need to clear my head," he said, avoiding her eyes as he grabbed his keys. He was gone before Clara could even form a response. Clara spent the morning in a daze, the apartment feeling vast and empty without him, yet suffocating with the unspoken tension. Her phone rang, jarring her out of her stupor. It was Sophia. "Hey, how was the date night?" she asked, her voice cheerful. Clara choked back a sob. "It was a disaster, Soph." She unloaded everything. The doubts, the divorce reference, the couch, the rusty nail. Sophia listened, her usual practicality tempered with concern. "Oh, Clara, I'm so sorry. Look, it's probably just cold feet. Pre-wedding anxiety is totally normal, even for the groom. Give him some space, but don't let yourself stew. Get out of that apartment." Reluctantly, Clara agreed. The idea of facing the world felt daunting, but the apartment was a prison of her own thoughts. She met Sophia for coffee, recounting every agonizing detail. Sophia's assurances of normal pre-wedding jitters offered a temporary balm, a logical explanation for the emotional wreckage. After coffee, Clara decided to try a little retail therapy, hoping to distract herself. Wandering through boutiques, trying on clothes she had no intention of buying, she felt a fragile sense of calm return. The weight in her chest eased slightly. Maybe Sophia was right. Maybe this was just a hurdle, a final test before their forever. With a lighter though still heavy heart, Clara eventually headed home. The fragile calm Clara found through retail therapy dissolved the moment her phone buzzed. It was Liam, Marcus's coworker, an acquaintance she'd only met a handful of times at company picnics. His text was simple yet chilling. "Hey Clara, are you okay? Things got weird at the Rusty Nail last night. Call me when you can." Her heart plummeted, a cold dread washing over her. Weird was a polite understatement, she suspected. She called him immediately, her fingers trembling. Liam answered hesitantly, his voice low, as if he didn't want to be overheard. After a bit of pressing, a careful nudge from Clara, the dam broke. Liam, clearly uncomfortable, recounted the events of the previous night. Owen, Marcus's so-called friend, had apparently been relentlessly needling Marcus about wedding planning, making jokes about being tied down in the old ball and chain. Marcus, increasingly drunk, had initially laughed along, then started expressing his own doubts about being with one woman forever. The words were like a physical blow to Clara, confirming her worst fears. Then came the real gut punch. Liam paused, a heavy silence stretching between them. "And then, Clara," he finally said, his voice tinged with regret. "Marcus, he made a joke. He said, and I quote, 'If you were prettier, I'd be more excited about marrying you.'" Liam hurried to add, "He laughed it off like it was nothing," saying, "Just a stupid, drunk comment." But everyone just froze. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. Prettier? The words echoed in her mind, sharp and cutting. It wasn't just the public humiliation. It was the raw, personal cruelty of it. Liam explained that he and a few other co-workers had actually called Marcus out, telling him it was out of line. But Marcus, belligerent and defensive, had only scoffed, accusing them of not being able to take a joke. He just kept saying, "Relax, it's just banter." even as everyone else looked totally uncomfortable. Liam finished, sounding genuinely apologetic. Thank you, Liam, Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. Thank you for telling me. She hung up, staring at the phone in her hand as if it had delivered a fatal blow. She didn't want to go inside the apartment. Not yet. She sat in her car, the engine off, the silence amplifying the ringing in her ears. 20 minutes passed in a blur of heartbroken tears and crushing humiliation. Her face felt hot. Her chest ached. The thought of Marcus saying those words publicly to his friends, then dismissing it, was a betrayal deeper than anything she could have imagined. When she finally pushed open the apartment door, the air was heavy with the stale smell of beer and regret. Marcus was passed out on the couch, still in his clothes from the night before, a half-empty glass on the floor beside him. He looked pathetic, but Clara felt no pity, only a chilling emptiness. Without a word, she scooped up their ginger cat, Muffin, who wound around her ankles and locked herself in the bedroom. The door, a flimsy barrier, felt like her only protection. Sunday morning brought the inevitable apology breakfast. Marcus, looking genuinely miserable, with dark circles under his eyes and hair mussed, stood awkwardly in the kitchen, attempting to flip pancakes that were more charred than golden. The apartment, usually vibrant with their weekend routines, felt like a tomb. Clara, he started, his voice rough with hangover and remorse. Look, about last night, I really messed up. I'm so sorry. Clara walked into the kitchen, her eyes cold, devoid of the warmth he was used to. Liam called me, she stated, her voice flat. Marcus flinched, his face falling, the last vestiges of his bravado evaporating. The spatula clattered onto the counter. Liam, what did he say? He stammered, avoiding her gaze. He told me everything, Marcus. About Owen, about your doubts, about being with one woman forever. And about the joke. The word joke was laced with venom. He tried to downplay it, his voice tight with desperation. Clara, please. I was drunk. I was stupid. Owen was just ragging on me about the wedding, about costs. I was trying to shut them up, to sound tough. You know, guys being guys. Guys being guys? Clara scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Is that what you call publicly humiliating the woman you're supposed to marry? Telling your friends you'd be more excited if I were prettier? That's not guys being guys, Marcus. That's cruel. The argument escalated, the words hanging heavy in the strained silence of their apartment. His defense of stress over wedding costs fell flat, a pathetic excuse against the crushing weight of his words. Clara wouldn't get past the cruel joke about her appearance. It had stripped her bare, exposed her to his friends, and left her feeling utterly worthless. I need to leave, she announced, her voice trembling, but firm. She packed a small bag, ignoring Marcus's frantic pleas and apologies. She drove straight to her brother Leo's apartment. Leo, protective and fiercely loyal, was instantly furious. He clenched his fists, ready to march over to their apartment and confront Marcus. No, Leo, please, Clara said, her voice strained. I need space to think. She collapsed onto his couch, the tears finally flowing freely. Marcus's text started almost immediately, a barrage of desperate apologies, promises, and excuses. Clara replied once, a terse, "Don't text me, Marcus." Monday morning brought another unexpected call. It was Eleanor, Marcus's mom. Her voice was thick with tears. Clara, dear, Marcus told me something important. Can we meet, please? Clara felt a new wave of dread wash over her. What else could there possibly be? What new horror was waiting to unravel? Clara found Eleanor at a quiet corner table in the bustling coffee shop, looking utterly unlike herself. Usually impeccably put together, Eleanor's hair was disheveled, her eyes puffy and red-rimmed, and her usually vibrant scarf was askew. She gripped a lukewarm cup of tea, her knuckles white. Clara, dear, she murmured, her voice shaky. After some strained pleasantries about the weather and the surprisingly good coffee, Eleanor took a deep breath. Marcus called me yesterday, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. He was in an absolute meltdown, crying, rambling. Eleanor confirmed Clara's suspicions about Marcus's commitment fears. His dread of turning into his emotionally distant father were indeed real. But she continued, her gaze meeting Clara's with a raw honesty. There's something else, something more immediate causing all of this. Eleanor nervously began to shred the corner of her napkin, her eyes darting around the cafe before settling back on Clara. He's developed feelings for someone else. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Isabella, the new project coordinator at work. Clara felt a sickening lurch in her stomach, a cold wave of realization washing over her. Nothing physical, he swore, Eleanor quickly added, as if trying to cushion the blow. But an emotional connection. He said he just feels confused, said it made him question everything with you. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place with brutal clarity. Isabella, the new project coordinator who started right around New Year's. Marcus's sudden preoccupation with his phone, his late replies, his increased distance, it had all begun then. It wasn't just pre-wedding jitters, it was a slow, agonizing slide into another relationship. Clara's mind raced, a whirlwind of anger and confusion. "Why are you telling me this, Eleanor?" she asked, her voice tight, barely recognizing it as her own. "Aren't you supposed to be protecting your son?" Eleanor sighed, a deep, weary sound. She leaned forward, her eyes filled with a pain Clara now recognized as her own. "Because, Clara, I lived through this. Marcus's father, before he had his affair, before he left, he pulled away from me, just like Marcus is doing now. He created this distance, made me feel crazy, made me feel like I was the problem, when all along, he was already gone." She squeezed Clara's hand, her own trembling. "I don't want you to go through what I did. I don't want history to repeat itself." The cruel joke Marcus had made at the rusty nail. "If you were prettier, I'd be more excited about marrying you," now twisted in Clara's gut, making horrifying sense. It wasn't just a drunken insult, it was a subconscious cry for help, an attempt to sabotage their relationship, to make her leave, so he wouldn't have to make the hard choice himself. He was creating the distance, manufacturing reasons, just like his father had. They talked for over an hour, the coffee shop fading into the background. Eleanor spoke openly about her own marriage breakdown, the years of trying to fix something that was already broken. The self-blame, the desperate attempts to win back a love that had already moved on. Her pain was palpable, a chilling preview of Clara's potential future. As they parted, Eleanor's final words resonated with a haunting clarity. "You can't make someone choose you, Clara. They either do or they don't. And if they don't, you deserve to know, and you deserve better." Clara returned to Leo's apartment, her head buzzing with Eleanor's revelations. Marcus's texts were still there, a cascade of desperate apologies, declarations of "I love you," and promises to make things right. But not a single mention of Isabella, not a word about the real reason for his cold feet. He was still hiding, still trying to control the narrative, to keep her in the dark. A sudden surge of defiance, cold and clear, pushed through her grief. She picked up her phone. "I know about Isabella," she typed, her fingers steady. "Don't contact me again until you're ready to tell me the complete truth." She sent the message, then, with a deep breath, temporarily blocked his number. She needed to breathe, to think, without his manipulative words clouding her judgment. Moments later, her phone rang. It was Chloe, Marcus's younger sister. Clara braced herself for another conversation about loyalty, but Chloe's voice was firm, unequivocal. "Clara, I just heard. Marcus and Owen were talking, loud enough for me to overhear." "It's Isabella, isn't it?" Clara confirmed it, her voice cracking. "I just wanted you to know I'm so sorry, and I'm here for you, not him." Chloe's unwavering support, despite her familial tie to Marcus, was an unexpected beacon of relief in the darkness. It was a lifeline, a confirmation that she wasn't alone, that not everyone was blind to Marcus's manipulations. The truth, ugly and painful, was finally out in the open. Staying at Sophia's apartment felt both comforting and strangely isolating. The familiar clutter of Sophia's life was a stark contrast to the stark emptiness Clara felt inside. Just as she was trying to process Eleanor's revelations, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Her breath caught in her throat as she read it. Clara, this is Isabella. I know you blocked Marcus. Can we meet? There's more to the story. A surge of conflicting emotions washed over Clara. Curiosity, dread, a flicker of anger, and a desperate hope for clarity. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Why would Isabella reach out? Was this another one of Marcus's manipulations? After a long moment of internal debate, she typed a terse reply. Where and when? They agreed to meet at a quiet breakfast spot near the park the following morning. When Clara arrived, Isabella was already there, tucked into a corner booth. She was exactly as Clara had pictured her. Elegant, professional, with a quiet confidence that Clara now suspected was masking her own discomfort. Isabella fidgeted with her napkin, avoiding eye contact, her anxiety almost palpable. "Thank you for meeting me, Clara," Isabella began, her voice soft. "This is incredibly awkward, but I felt you deserved to know the full truth." Isabella then dropped the first bombshell. "I had no idea Marcus had feelings for me until last week," she confessed, her cheeks flushing. "Owen, his friend, casually mentioned it, said Marcus was struggling with his engagement because of me." Clara stared, dumbfounded. "Owen said that?" Isabella nodded, then pulled out her phone. "Look," she offered, sliding it across the table. "Our text history, it's all work-related. Occasional memes, sure, but nothing romantic, nothing inappropriate." Clara scrolled through the messages, a mix of project updates, meeting reminders, and a few harmless office jokes. There was no flirtation, no hidden meanings. "I even have a boyfriend of 3 years," Isabella added, her voice firm. "He works in finance." The second revelation was even more shocking. Isabella explained that Owen had been deliberately stirring the pot at work, relentlessly teasing Marcus about being trapped by his engagement and encouraging him to explore his options. "I overheard him telling Marcus, specifically about me, that I gets him better than you do," Isabella said, her brow furrowed in genuine distress. "He's been telling everyone that Marcus was having cold feet, joking about him missing his freedom. He's been really pushing Marcus." Clara felt a strange sense of calm descend upon her. The anger, the humiliation, the self-doubt, they began to recede, replaced by a chilling clarity. Isabella wasn't a villain, she was a bystander, an unwitting pawn in Owen's manipulative games and Marcus's desperate weakness. It wasn't about another woman, it was about Marcus's inability to be honest, and Owen's toxic influence feeding his insecurities. "He's been influencing Marcus a lot lately," Isabella continued, her gaze direct now. "Marcus trusts him, listens to him. Owen seems to thrive on drama." As they parted ways, Isabella offered a final piece of advice that resonated deeply with Clara. "You seem like someone who knows their worth," she said, a small, genuine smile gracing her lips. "Don't let anyone make you question it." Clara left the coffee shop with a newfound perspective. This wasn't just about her and Marcus anymore. This was a complex web of deceit, manipulation, and Marcus's profound immaturity. It was bigger and far uglier than she had initially imagined. A plan began to form in her mind, a cold, calculated strategy for confronting the truth. She immediately texted Chloe, Marcus's sister, whose unwavering support was now more vital than ever. "Chloe, I need your help. Can you arrange a family meeting? At your apartment, neutral territory. Everyone, Marcus, your mom, Owen, if you can get him there." Chloe's reply was instantaneous. "Consider it done. I've got your back, Clara." With Chloe's steadfast support, Clara felt a surge of quiet determination. She was no longer just a heartbroken fiancé. She was a woman ready to confront the collective truth, to expose the toxic undercurrents that had poisoned her relationship. The stage was set, not just for a difficult family dinner, but for a necessary reckoning. If you're still with me, it means you understand how painful it is to watch your own story unravel. This next part is where everything came to a head. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to see how I navigate this tangled mess. Clara arrived at Chloe's cozy apartment, her stomach a nest of nerves. Eleanor was already there, looking more composed than yesterday, but with a strained tension around her eyes. Owen, surprisingly, was also present, slouching on the sofa, nursing a beer, an arrogant smirk plastered on his face. Finally, Marcus walked in, looking utterly defeated, his eyes bloodshot, radiating a potent mix of shame and exhaustion. The air in the small living room was thick with unspoken accusations and simmering resentment. The initial 20 minutes were excruciating. Plates of Chloe's homemade pasta sat mostly untouched as they picked at their food. The silence punctuated only by the clinking of forks and the occasional forced cough. Clara felt a grim determination hardening within her. This wasn't going to be another evening of avoiding the truth. Eleanor, bless her, was the first to break the unbearable quiet. She placed her fork down with a gentle clink that echoed loudly. "We're not here to pretend everything is fine," she stated, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. "We're here to address the situation, Marcus, and to find a way forward for everyone involved." Clara took a deep breath. This was it. "I met with Isabella today," she began, her voice clear and unwavering. Owen's head snapped up, his smirk dissolving into a look of genuine confusion, then quickly morphing into defensiveness. "She told me about the things you've been saying, Owen, about Marcus's feelings for her, about pushing him to explore his options." "What?" Owen sputtered, rising slightly from the couch. "That's not... I was just looking out for my friend. Marcus was having doubts. Anyone could see that. I was just..." "Shut up, Owen," Chloe interjected sharply, her eyes blazing. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You're a toxic influence, and you've made this 10 times worse." Marcus, who had been sitting in stony silence, finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "She's right," he mumbled, not looking at Owen. "Isabella was just friendly. I built it into something else in my head, because I was scared of becoming minded." He still couldn't meet Clara's gaze. "And the joke, Marcus?" Clara pushed, needing him to acknowledge the full extent of his cruelty. "At the Rusty Nail, about me being prettier?" Marcus visibly flinched, his face paling with genuine shame. That had nothing to do with Isabella. Or your looks, Clara, I swear." He finally looked at her, his eyes filled with a raw, desperate honesty. "It was just, Owen was ragging on me so hard, calling me whipped, saying I was losing my freedom. I was drunk, I was trying to seem cool, to fit in. It was pure cowardice." "Guy talk," Owen scoffed, attempting to regain some semblance of control. "No, Owen," Chloe snapped. "It's not guy talk. It's disrespectful, it's hurtful, and it's completely unacceptable. And for the record, this wedding is in 3 months." Chloe's simple statement, devoid of emotion, hung in the air, cold and definitive. 3 months. The reality of it hit Clara like a physical blow. The dress, the venue, the invitations, all for a future that had already crumbled. "I didn't think the wedding was happening anymore, Pokemon," Clara said quietly, her voice barely a whisper, yet it cut through the tension with the sharpness of a knife. Marcus's head shot up. "Clara, no, Stop, Marcus." Clara cut him off, her voice growing stronger, a new resolve stealing her spine. "This isn't just about Isabella, or the joke, or even Owen's toxic advice. This is about your dishonesty, with yourself and with me. I spent 5 years making excuses for you, ignoring the signs, hoping you'd come around. But I deserve someone who is certain about me. Someone who doesn't need a family intervention to figure out if they want to marry me." Owen let out a snarky, dismissive sound. "Well, that's a bit dramatic, isn't it?" "Shut up, Owen." Eleanor and Chloe chorused simultaneously, their voices laced with an identical, furious edge. Marcus, tears welling in his eyes, looked at Clara with a profound sadness. "I do love you, Clara. I'm scared. Scared of messing everything up." "You already have," Clara replied, her voice soft but firm. The words hung between them, a final, unarguable truth. The conversation that followed stretched on for hours, fueled by raw emotions. Tears flowed freely, heated words were exchanged, especially between Chloe and Owen, whose friendship seemed to be fracturing with every revelation, and difficult truths were finally laid bare. Around midnight, an exhausted, painful agreement was reached. The wedding was off. The 5-year relationship, once so full of promise, had run its course, irrevocably shattered by broken trust and unaddressed insecurities. It's been 3 months since that agonizing night at Chloe's apartment, 3 months since I officially called off the wedding, and ended a 5-year relationship. I'm writing this from my new, smaller one-bedroom apartment across town, a place that, despite its modest size, feels like a sanctuary. The shared apartment, the one Marcus and I had built a life in, felt hollow the moment he agreed to move out. Within a week, my brother Leo and Sophia were there, helping me pack his things into boxes, leaving them by the door for him to collect. It was a swift, efficient, and utterly heartbreaking process. I broke the lease, paying an extra month, but it was a cost I gladly bore to escape the lingering ghost of our relationship that haunted every corner. Financially, it's been an adjustment. Going from a dual income to a single one meant a steep learning curve in budget consciousness. I've become adept at tracking every dollar, making conscious choices about my spending, and finding a quiet satisfaction in managing my own expenses independently. Dealing with the wedding vendors was surprisingly less painful than I'd imagined. The venue, while keeping the deposit, sent a remarkably kind note wishing me well. The florist, a lovely woman who had seen me through countless happy client consultations, refunded half my payment, simply saying, "Sometimes the best laid plans lead to better ones." Even the DJ, perhaps sensing the deeper wounds, offered a recommendation for a good therapist. It felt less like a financial transaction and more like a collective blessing for my new path. The engagement ring sits in a small velvet box in my dresser drawer. I haven't decided what to do with it. Part of me wants to sell it, to sever the last tangible link to a broken promise. Another part remembers Marcus's drunken comment about bad karma regarding rings. It's a silly superstition, but for now it just sits there, a glittering symbol of what wasn't meant to be. Social media, as expected, was its own special hell. I posted a vague statement about mutual decisions and needing time and space. Later, after I had settled into my new apartment, I shared a photo of my new keys, simply captioned, "New Beginnings." The outpouring of support from friends and even distant acquaintances was overwhelming, a testament to the community I had around me. Marcus and I have managed civil, albeit strained, conversations about practical matters, forwarding mail, closing shared accounts. There's no animosity, just a quiet understanding that our paths have diverged. Chloe still keeps me updated without me having to ask about his life. He's still at the same construction company, but apparently he and Owen had a massive falling out, and their friendship is over. Isabella, I hear, requested a transfer to a different project and maintains a professional, almost cold distance from Marcus. The biggest surprise came a few weeks ago, a text from Marcus. He asked to meet, not to reconcile, but to talk. When we did, he revealed he'd started seeing a therapist. He spoke haltingly about working through his patterns, specifically his relationship with his emotionally distant father and the unhealthy influence of Owen. He didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't try to win me back. He just wanted me to know that he was genuinely working on himself. And to my own surprise, I found myself genuinely hoping that therapy helps him find the peace he clearly needs. My relationships with Eleanor and Chloe have only deepened. Eleanor texts me weekly, simple check-ins, always respectful of my boundaries regarding Marcus. Chloe and I have bi-weekly breakfast dates, laughing, sharing, and reminding each other of our strength. Their unwavering support has been a lifeline, and I've started my own therapy too. I'm realizing now how much I compromised myself in that relationship, how many red flags I ignored, how many parts of myself I unknowingly lost. It's a painful but necessary journey of rediscovery. I'm reclaiming past hobbies, like hiking in the quiet woods, finding solace in solitude. I've declined all suggestions for dating, content with simply being comfortable in my own company, learning who Clara is independently. Perhaps the most unexpected step I've taken was booking the non-refundable honeymoon trip to a quaint coastal cottage. Alone, sitting by the ocean, listening to the waves crash, I finally found a profound sense of clarity and peace. It's not about perfection, I've realized, but about progress, about choosing myself unapologetically. Our story began like so many others, simple and sweet. Marcus and I had been together for just over 5 years, engaged for 8 months. We'd met through mutual friends, two people hitting it off over a shared hatred of IPAs and a love for 90s cartoons. Our relationship progressed at a comfortable pace, dating for a year, moving in together after 2, adopting our cat, Muffin, at 3 and getting engaged last summer. The proposal wasn't extravagant, just a Saturday morning hike to our favorite lookout point where he nervously fumbled the ring box out of his pocket. I said yes immediately, and we set the date for this October, slowly planning our future. But then, the cracks appeared, deepening into chasms. After dating for 5 years, my fiancé told me he wasn't sure about marrying me. Then came the cruelest blow. He joked in front of his friends, "If you were prettier, I'd marry you." The morning after, his mom called me in tears, unraveling a truth far more complex than I could have imagined. A web of commitment, fears, manipulation, and an emotional affair. Confronting this truth meant calling off the wedding, tearing down the future I'd meticulously built. It was a shattering end, yet it marked a powerful new beginning. I've since moved into my own apartment, found solace in therapy, and reclaimed parts of myself I didn't even realize were lost. I even took our planned honeymoon trip, alone finding peace and clarity on my own terms. It's been a journey of progress, not perfection, and I'm finally choosing myself.